welcome to another edition of Conversation Collage. We talk with interesting people, we talk about the things they're interested in, we try and keep it nice and friendly, and if you're not careful, you just might learn something by the time we're through here. This time, we'll be talking about COVID-19 and coronavirus and the effect it's having on our relationships, and just how can we keep our relationships intact when we're either stuck at home or separated from those that we care about. We talk with Dr. Marlene Bizub, who is a psychologist and a person who deals with families and relationships and children and things like that. And so we talked about all of that. Before we get to that, though, let's talk a little bit about... Before we get to that, a postscript on our last podcast with Michael O'Neill. I spent a couple of hours last night as we record this watching Council of Dads on NBC. And if you didn't watch it, then I demand that you go back and listen to our previous podcast, which had a conversation, a wonderful conversation with one of the stars of Council of Dads, Michael O'Neill, who you remember from The West Wing, and he's done a slew of movies and TV work over the last 40 years. He is one of the dads in Council of Dads, and I watched that show last night, and it was marvelous. I have not seen a drama that well done since West Wing. And if you listen to our conversation, he does make references, the similarities between West Wing and Council of Dads. So if you like West Wing, I think you'll like Council of Dads, and I certainly did. And now that I've watched it, Michael, I hope you'll come back because I've got a whole new set of questions for you about the show and everything else. And hope he can come back and hope he's listening. He listens to these podcasts. As a matter of fact, before we started our actual interview, I just happened to be recording, and he was talking about how he listened to these podcasts, and it caught me by surprise. And here's just the clip of that.
You know, the topics. I mean, I was listening to Judge Ginsburg, how to make a music.
Oh my gosh, you've actually listened to my podcasts.
Yes.
Oh, I'm flattered. I'm honored. Wow, that's marvelous.
I love conversation. I love that you call it a collage. And I keep telling my daughters, listen, you don't connect filaments with people when you text. Mm-hmm. You connect filaments to people when you have a conversation with them, when you sit across from them, because you can see what they're not saying. You know, so I love that you've taken this on.
We're going to record this, although I already started recording. I said, hey, if he's going to say nice things about him, about my show, I'm going to start it now. So
please use it.
So if Michael O'Neill listens to Conversation Collage and enjoys it, I trust you will too. I certainly hope so. So anyway, if you haven't heard the Michael O'Neill interview with yours truly, please go back and listen to it because it is truly great conversation, and it is exactly what we're looking for this podcast. Now, on to Dr. Marlene Bizub, who we talked with about the wide-ranging impacts of this pandemic and quarantine and the effect it's having on our relationships, marriages, the parent-child dynamic, and all sorts of things. And we caught up with Dr. Marlene Bizub, who is a noted psychologist, and she's author of the book Contentious Custody.
Hi, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Am I right, Dr. Bizub?
Yes, but you can call me Marlene.
I can call you Marlene. All right. Where are you, Marlene?
Okay. I'm in Colorado Springs.
Contentious Custody. This is kind of a book that kind of speaks to our times right now with us hemmed up and locked in at home and stuff like that. How did you get into this line of work that you're in?
You know, I really happened into it. I was working in the court system, but I was doing therapy. And it was dependency and neglect cases. So cases where the Department of Human Services was involved and kids were in foster care. And as they were getting ready to go home from foster care, I would go into the home and do transition counseling to get them back home. And an attorney asked me one day if I could do a custody eval. And I said, well, I never have, but I probably could. So I paid someone to walk me through the process, to show me her paperwork and processes and all of that. And after my first case, I said, I will never do this again. But the need for business, because I was supporting a private practice, trying to grow a private practice, the need for business overcame my aversion. And after about my second or third case, I developed a passion for doing this kind of work. Because I'm the child of divorce, I've been divorced as an adult. And I just developed a passion for the work.
The book.
It's a very long answer, but that's how I got there.
That's fine. No, that's great. Contentious Custody. Explain the title of that. That's an interesting title.
Yeah. Well, when people go through divorce or separation, it often is contentious because the system perpetuates the conflict. And when I say the system, I mean the court system. Attorneys, their job, and it isn't that they're bad people. I mean, I happen to think they perpetuate more conflict than they have to, but their job is to represent their client. So it's going to be more contentious than if their job was to work out an agreement. But they don't really try to work out a resolution as much as they represent their client. They're trying to get the best deal they can get for their client.
The whole atmosphere of custody and divorce, it's really done for the lawyers and the law. It's not really done for the plaintiff and the defendant there, the two parties who are actually involved in it. This isn't made for them.
Exactly.
Bringing this to current day, how is the best way to deal with situations when you've got a husband and wife in the home, stuck? Kids are in there too, possibly. How do we get along, I guess, is the question here.
Yes. Well, there's actually two answers. They're diametrically opposed. But one is to find your own space and time and, carve out me time, have a schedule, structure your time at home. Because if both parents are working from home, and then you've got children home also doing homework, and they need other attention, then somebody's got to take care of the kids, and somebody's got to get their work done. So I recommend structuring it and just say, here's the schedule. For these 2 hours, you've got the kids. For these 2 hours, I'll take the kids, and just alternate. The other answer, which is the opposite, is to also find time to all do things together. So find your own space and time, but then don't forget to come back together and have family time. Work a puzzle, play a game, or even if you're all working on your stuff, sit down together and work on it if you can. So it's kind of two opposite answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's kind of a dichotomy to that, isn't there?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, the question also comes that at some point this is all going to end and we're going to get back to what we would consider some semblance of normalcy. How is this situation, how is what we're going through right now going to impact relationships down the road once we do get back to normal? What's going to be the impact of this on our psyche?
Well, what I think will happen first, this is just my somewhat educated prediction, I think we will see an increase in divorce filings right after the quarantine ends. Now, I know there's some loosening, like our state loosened things as of yesterday, but it isn't completely gone. Like they aren't saying, just go back to life as normal. But I think once we do go back to life as normal, I think what happened in China is going to happen here. And I don't know if you heard about that. The divorce filings skyrocketed right after the quarantine was lifted. I think we're going to see the same thing. People have just gotten sick of each other. We need space. As human beings, we need space. And sometimes spending too much time with that person, it's a reminder of the things you don't like about them, that you can't live with. and now you've had to for 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so I think we'll see a spike in divorce filings.
But then, is that just going to be a knee-jerk reaction, I guess, is my question. Or the divorce filings just going to be, okay, we can't live together, and then after that happens, after the filings, then things calm down a little bit, and then they realize that maybe we went into this a little hasty with this divorce thing. Do you think the filings will turn into actual divorces?
That's an interesting question. And it'll be interesting to see, because that's a very good point, that it might be a knee-jerk reaction. And people pretty quickly find out. In fact, I had a gal read my book, and she scheduled an appointment with me to have me coach them through their divorce. But after she read just the first couple of chapters of my book, when we met, she said, well, I think I probably wasted your time, because after reading the first few chapters of your book, I'm going to make this work. It isn't going to be any better to be divorced. And I said, you're right, it's not. So people might see, well, that isn't any better, and so they won't go through with the divorce. But I think initially we'll see some filings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but will they go through with it, I guess, is the question afterward, or will they, maybe a week or 2 or 3 after the filings, they'll say, hey, wait a minute, we're better off together. Yeah, we've made it through this far, let's keep it going.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about people who have addictions and disorders and things like that? This has got to be a very trying time for those people.
Well, yes, and certainly a situation like this exacerbates those issues, because you can't go to your AA meeting. Mm-hmm. You can't go have coffee with your sponsor, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it certainly exacerbates those kind of problems. Same with mental health, especially if you have anxiety or depression. This is only going to feed into it. This isn't going to help any.
Yeah. So how do these people deal with it? I mean, you can't have a meeting, but although a lot of people are meeting virtually, but I guess you really can't. Yeah. I guess an AA, I don't know if an AA meeting can happen virtually. That's kind of tough.
Well, I was just going to say, people have turned to virtual meetings.
Right.
Either with the AA meeting or just meeting with your sponsor, mm-hmm. or finding a support group. There's a lot of stuff being done online, and go back to the question you asked a little bit ago about what's going to be the fallout of this. I think we're going to see more online meetings, appointments with clients, things like that will continue. I don't think that's going to end, because a lot of us have found out it's here, it's, you don't have to get up and get dressed and get out, and you have to be presentable to be on the screen.
Right.
But, it's time driving to the appointment. People can pay for services online. And so I think we'll see a change of some people sticking to doing more remote work than what they did before.
Mm-hmm. But we do need social contact. We need the actual face-to-face meeting. I don't think it's...
Yeah.
Hopefully that won't go away totally.
No, and I don't think it will. For that reason, we need that. We need human contact.
Yeah.
But I think we're finding out a little bit of it goes a long way. I mean, when you're up there, and that's the other thing that I think people struggle with, is the control issue. We don't have control. We're told to stay home. We're told we can't go out to eat, for example. Uh-huh. And a lot of this is people not liking to lose that control.
Once the controls are lifted, are we going to go crazy? Are we going to go hog wild with things that the things that we couldn't do now with the things we can do once again?
Well, I think initially we probably will. You haven't been able to shop. You haven't been able to go out to your favorite restaurant.